FESIG, the Free Energy Special Interest Group, where science meets spirituality in the quest for truth and knowledge to free humanity and transform this planet into a paradise. Hi everyone, hi. Welcome to FESIG's 139th meeting. Today is the 6th of August, and we have our 139th meeting on the first Wednesday of the month as customary. Every first Wednesday of the month, we have our FESIG meeting, so you know when to look out in our website for updates as to know who is speaking and all the details, and they're all linked up to the speakers' websites as well, so you can do your own research, and if it interests you, join us live, and that's the best really, because you can interact with the speaker asking questions live, as well as the rest of the members who are in attendance. Right, so I'm going to share screen so we can see the agenda for today's meeting. I would like to thank everyone for attending this meeting, those who are present. I am introducing, okay, so I just wanted to show the big screen. That's it, yeah. So I have been chairing FESIG meetings from day one, and my co-chair is usually Dr. Fresfrezel, but he's not able to make it today because he's got other important priorities to attend to, and it's very rare that he doesn't attend. So we've been doing this year after year for 9+ years now for you all, as our platform is a non-profit humanitarian initiative. We offer it for free, so do come. One and all, come and study with us. We have some of the most brilliant minds presenting here on our platform. So we have the team here with us. We have Pontus, Henrik, Jerry. Matthew is moving house today, so he's not able to attend. Right. So what is the Free Energy Special Interest Group? It is a platform where science meets spirit. We here encourage scientists to go within, to be connected with their spirituality to solve the final equation that seems to be stuck somewhere. The spirituality is not present in the science. So here we have very open-minded futurist freedom seekers studying together. All the teachings, knowledge that the speakers bring to our platform are very, very enlightening and useful for our development of whatever we have come here to do in our divine mission, basically. So we have today the 139th FESIG meeting. We have two speakers. The first speaker is Darren Ball. He's minister at the Aetherius Society, and he presents the spiritual energy crisis. And indeed, we have been having the spiritual energy crisis for a long, long time on this planet, and it needs to have some answers. Okay, so Darren's here with some. So he is talking about what it is, why it matters to the future of humanity of Earth, and how you can play a part in solving it. Discover the mission of Master of Yoga, Dr. George King, who started the Aetherius Society. He's a medium, spiritual master, and radionic scientist who dedicated his life to sharing and acting upon the spiritual message of advanced extraterrestrials and cooperating with them in their plan to help humanity. And then, of course, I'll be introducing Darren more in detail with his bio in a minute. And then after he had presented live with the PowerPoint presentation, we will do the Q&A. And then the next session we will have Rupert Douglas Bate. So hang on, don't go away, stay on, because this is also very interesting. He's the author of The Competition for Hope. He's the founder, and this is where Darren and Rupert have something in common, because they both are into helping people doing startups and all that, right? Helping people, especially, and me too. I mean, I help humanitarian activists and scientists, especially scientists and inventors, put their ideas in a format where they can actually look for funding and do a startup. So this is where the talents are pulled together. Darren also wrote a book, and well, we'll let him talk about it in a minute. And then Rupert has this book called The Competition for Hope. He is the founder of Global Map Aid to facilitate his invention, the Well Map, an AI system for groundwater detection and mapping designed to improve the accuracy of shallow well drilling and digging. Rupert presents Smarter Water 8 Spells piece, committed to the mission of better drinking water, irrigation, food supply, and conservation agriculture for small farmers in Ethiopia and other impoverished and parched arid lands. And I want you to pen down in your diary once we finish with this meeting, 139th meeting, I made a mistake. The 140th meeting, not 139th, 40th meeting on the, will be on the 3rd. No, sorry, will be on the, what is the first Wednesday of the month, bros? Help me out here.
It'll
September.
Be the 3rd of September.
The 3rd of September. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to make corrections there for the next session. All right. So there you go. 3rd of September, folks. All right. Pen down your diary. So write to me if you have any contribution that you want to present, like you want to join us or you want to volunteer, because this is a nonprofit and we have been funding this platform ourselves. I've been funding it myself, this whole thing on FESIG, and the R&D team members has been funding their own development of devices and technology. So if you got extra, please pay for it so we can share this platform with you for free, as we've always been for 9 years now. So these are our video channels: YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey. Our best performing videos are in BitChute. Unfortunately, some countries ban them, especially the UK. Oh, what a shame. But anyway, there you go. So we have our Facebook as well. Join our Facebook to see announcements and sharing of knowledge there as well. And join our Telegram group so you can interact with the members to form study groups after each and every speaker has spoken. You can start a study group if that's your area of interest and it's going to help you with your work. So thank you for bearing with me each and every time. I have to do this because the videos are all standalone, okay? Right, I stopped sharing now. I'm going to do the honors of introducing our first speaker, Darren Ball, succinctly, so that well, we're so honored to have him here to talk about the title that I have just mentioned earlier, okay, that is the spiritual energy crisis. Darren is minister in the Aetherius churches, a blend of yoga wisdom and practices with Christian mysticism. Okay, I think I'll read the bio that he sent me instead. Darren co-hosts the acclaimed podcast, The Spiritual Freedom Show, with Richard Lawrence, the award-winning international best-selling author of Realize Your Inner Potential and Unlock Your Psychic Powers. He is also the inspired creator of the 12 Blessings, which is the website is 12blessings.org. 12 is in the numeral 12, a consciousness shifting online platform for global spiritual healing, active in 80 over countries, bringing joy, upliftment, and wisdom to countless truth seekers around the world. His inspired, logical, and dynamic approach to presenting extraordinary spiritual truths make him an impactful speaker who is sure to excite the imagination and break the barriers of conventional dogma in this fascinating talk that he's presenting at FESIG's platform. Darren is also, hang on. Well, he's also a minister at the Aetherius Church, right? The European headquarters is actually quite near where I live, in London. And he is, okay, he's running Who's Fabio with JP Luchetti. They help corporates build digital products like startups, as I mentioned earlier, and had written a book called Traction First. So if you go to his website, darrenball.com, you'll be able to see what he is bringing for the people, okay, that you can participate in. Now, we are going to have Dr. Richard Lawrence speaking on the 3rd of December. Thanks to Darren for fixing that appointment for him to speak at our platform. Richard Lawrence had been working with Dr. George King, speaking to him face-to-face or on the phone almost every day for 20 years. And he's the executive secretary of the Aetherius Society at our European headquarters here in London, and a senior bishop at the Aetherius churches. So he has co-authored most of the, in fact, all the books. He is an international best-selling author of 11 books, co-authored with Dr. George King, bringing messages from Mars Sector 6. Darren will tell you the details in a minute, including contacts with the gods from space and Realize Your Inner Potential, both of which he co-authored with Dr. King. He is the lead author of The King Who Came to Earth, the biography of Dr. King, and editor of Cosmic Voice, the journal of the Aetherius Society. So please pen down your diary, 3rd of December. Dr. Lawrence will be revealing or unveiling the mystery of Dr. George King's mission here on the planet, and how he actually talked to Master Aetherius from on high, Mars Sector 6, and how he had gone to the satellite number 3 that is orbiting our planet at 1,550 feet. Well,
Nice.
anyway,
Yeah.
Darren will tell you all the details. So over to you now, Darren. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the invitation. I'm just going to get my screen started up here so everyone can see it, share the sound.
Sure.
All right. Allow. And I'm going to wait for you guys to let me know that you can see what I've got up there. Okay, perfect. So, as Crystal said, the Aetherius Society is very much about this meeting of science and spirituality, and about this true vision for peace. So it was a joy to meet Crystal at one of our recent events and to find that we had so much in common. And in fact, even in our teachings, there's a quote that says that science by itself is like the soulless wanderer of the realms of night, yet a warmth will come out of love to fashion it into a tool so that it becometh as a wise man finding his home. And I think that's really the essence of the meeting of science and spirituality, is infusing science with this element of love, so that it becomes the manifestation of our greatest aspirations for the world, the true vision of peace that we want to live in. So today, in coming in, the focus of my presentation is really to talk about a crisis. And I believe that crisis is the root of our problems on Earth. It's not the cost of living crisis. It's not the extremist politics. It's not the corruption. It's not the military-industrial complex or whatever else that people may identify. It's deeper than that. But the good news is that there is a solution. It's one that we can all play a part in. And what I want to show you today is just one way that we can do that. But amazingly, in cooperation with extraterrestrial intelligences who have vastly superior power and technology than we do, and a plan to help humanity that we can all be a part of. So today, as Crystal said, is part one of a much bigger story. In December, another speaker from the Society, Richard Lawrence, as she described, will be here to share part two, which, if you like, can go deeper into the work of the Aetherius Society, the way we use energy at a global level for the benefit of humanity as a whole. So you have that to look forward to. So let me start with the problem, just to set the context for what I want to offer today, which is that when we look at our world, obviously there's the poverty, there's the pollution, the war, or the threat of war, which still affects the lives of billions of people on Earth. And these things have all become a part of our everyday life as if they are somehow normal. But they aren't normal, are they? I mean, something is very wrong. But here's the rub of it. It would be delusional, I think, to think that these problems are happening to us rather than happening because of us. I think we can all agree, uncomfortable though it is, and as wonderful as all of you here may be, that basically the problem is us, in one way or another, and to one degree or another, either because of what we do or because of what we allow to happen in our world. In other words, in a world where fear and hatred did not exist, there would be no war. And in a world where greed and selfishness did not exist, there would be no poverty, and so on. So in other words, the problem is the way that we act because of the way that we think. And the way that we think is driven by our state of consciousness. And that is sort of the essence of what I wanted to talk about today. There's a beautiful analogy actually given by a man called Dr. George King. He's actually the founder of the Aetherius Society. I'll talk about him more in a moment. But what he does in this short extract that I want to share with you is that he describes this relationship between consciousness and our thoughts and actions that I think brings it into beautiful focus. And what he said was this. He said that the soul is a bright light which has been covered by numerous different colored materials. And the light which now shines from the soul through the thought and the action of mankind is a different color from the pure radiance, which is the source itself. And as he strips limitation from himself or layers of material from this light, so it changes color with each one taken off, and it gradually becomes brighter and purer until there will come a time when it will shine with all of its original unadulterated white radiance through all of his thoughts and actions. And that is the state in which we want to be in which, if we were in such a state, we could create this true vision of peace that you describe, as the focus of your organization. So the point is that our consciousness is about the degree to which we express the purity of our divine nature, free from the limitations of our ignorance, the things like fear and greed and selfishness and hatred, jealousy, etc. Right? And that's the good news, because if we are the problem, then we are also the solution. Just imagine for a moment if we did allow the light of our soul to shine through our every thought and action without any distortion, without any of the discoloration that Dr. King just described in that extract. What if we did feel a genuine selfless love and compassion for one another instead of whatever we feel now, which is some degree of that? Think about what kind of people we would be. Think about what kind of world that we would live in. And if I had to paint a picture for you in this moment, that I would say that there would be a world without any war, because we would see the total insanity of killing another aspect of God, if you want to call it that, because that reality of oneness would live within us. Materialism as it is today would have zero appeal, because we would know that the meaning of life is not about the accumulation of things and the pleasures that we experience through the senses. We would know that the meaning of life is to attain enlightenment through selfless service to others. It would be the natural order, the natural way of life. Greed and selfishness would be literally unthinkable to us. They would be totally alien to us and our thought pattern. We would live in a world in which we revered the Mother Earth as a living goddess, and we would be concerned for her future, not just our own future or the future of our children or our grandchildren. There would be no political corruption. There would be no sinister collusion between corporate and government interests. There would be no propaganda machine that's designed to manipulate what we think at every opportunity, because there would be no agenda save for the spiritual aspiration for global spiritual enlightenment, which we would all devote ourselves to with every ounce of our energy. And in this world, we would be truly wise, and our whole world as we know it today would change because of it. So the question is, how do we achieve that vision? How do we raise global consciousness? How do we raise our own consciousness? And to answer that question, I'd like to introduce you, more formally anyway, to Dr. George King, who, as far as I'm concerned, is an extraordinary person. He was a man who practiced advanced yoga for 8 to 10 hours a day for 10 years in the 1940s and 50s. And I cannot think of even one other person in the West who has even claimed to do that or something similar. It was extremely unusual. I mean, imagine it. Nowadays you can throw a stone in the air and it'll land on someone with a yoga mat, but it wasn't always that way, and certainly not that way at the end of World War II. And neither was he practicing yoga to improve his dating profile or something like that. He was doing it to attain enlightenment, right? And he got it. In fact, he got cosmic consciousness, which is a level of spiritual attainment as rare as it is extraordinary. We're talking about a full rise of Kundalini, which is that mystical power at the base of our spine, all the way up to the Brahma chakra at the top of the head, in which you experience for yourself the allness of creation. No longer is it a theory, but it is a living reality within you. This was a man who could levitate, who could become invisible, who had mastered astral projection, clairvoyance, clairaudience, etc. A man who was an expert spiritual healer. His greatest power of all, however, was his wisdom. And I'm talking about him today because he devoted his life to this challenge of raising global consciousness and taught people what they could do to play their part in the solution. I'm also talking about him today because he was a channel, a medium, we prefer to call it that, for advanced extraterrestrial intelligences. And in my opinion, he was the most advanced medium the world has ever seen. He received more than 600 messages over 27 years in an elevated trance state, and he received hundreds more telepathically over a total of 40 years. An unbroken record of communication with no evidence whatsoever of contradiction. And his mission was to spread and act upon the teachings and the directives of these cosmic masters, as we call them, which have a deep interest, to say the least, even a plan for helping humanity on Earth. And what makes him unique in his claims was that he was in touch, for the most part, with beings from other planets in our own solar system, Mars, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, etc. Now, of course, that always raises a few eyebrows because we have so much apparent evidence to the contrary, right? I mean, who or what could live in the extremely uninhabitable environs of these other worlds, unsuitable to all life as we know it? But consider that these are beings hundreds of millions or even billions of years more evolved than we are on Earth right now. And that according to the context that he received, as well as his own experience, they live on higher levels of existence, which we cannot detect except psychically because we do not yet have the instrumentation subtle enough to do so. And no doubt one day we will, but we don't have it now. These other realms, you can think about them as similar to the other realms that exist on Earth, where we go after we die to await our next incarnation. And we know about these realms on Earth because there are countless mediums who have been contacted by people from these other realms, right? Psychics can see these other realms, and people have visited these other realms outside the physical body. So by now, there is ample evidence that the physical world that we see around us is not the limit of our universe. And it's certainly not the limit of the other planets in our solar system. So if NASA were to go to Venus, as they have, I believe, and they were to look around on the physical surface of Venus for life, they would be looking in the basement for someone who lives in the penthouse. They're just not going to find them. But if they were to look in the penthouse, they would find whole worlds teeming with advanced extraterrestrial life, civilizations, the like of which we can hardly begin to imagine. This isn't like going to another country, where the food is a bit different and people take naps in the middle of the day or something, right? This, in comparison to us, they are like gods who travel freely throughout the galaxy, teaching and raising the consciousness of other less evolved worlds. Sometimes people ask, why do they want to help us or any other race for that matter? But I think that question says more about us than it does about them. And to them, it's obvious. I mean, think about it. They have experienced the oneness of creation. They see themselves as a cell in the whole. as many of our own spiritual masters on earth had described in their teachings that they have offered to us. They know that if any part of the whole suffers, that they suffer. And they love us unconditionally, more than we love ourselves, looking at the world around us and the way that we treat each other. They can see our divine potential, and they want to help us to realize that divine potential. That's the key. I thought what I'd do is just play a short extract from one of these messages, which were received through the mediumship of Dr. King, just to offer you a glimpse into the many hundreds of them that were received. So I'll play this for you now. It's just a couple of minutes, but I encourage you to really to focus on not just the message and the words that are being said here through Dr. King, but also the vibration of this message that you can feel when you really tune into the words as they're being said. So I'll play this for you now.
Oh, my sweet, adorable children, lift up your hearts to that God light within, and let this shine through your every thought. Let it be reflected in your every action. Let it manifest in your world now. Oh, sweet, adorable little children, know that within you there is a great spiritual potential which, if allowed to manifest, will illumine your soul, will illumine your mind, will illumine your very environment. It is the birthright of man, this manifestation of greatness from within.
One thing for me that always characterizes these messages is not just the inspiration, but the hope and the empowerment. They're talking about the divine potential within us. They're talking about realizing that. They're talking about what it would mean for our world if we were to realize that. These beings have been visiting our earth for millions of years, helping us with teaching and with their direct intervention where or when that has been allowed. And all of it has been part of a single plan for the enlightenment of our world. These were, in fact, the words of the Master Jesus, the same Jesus who walked the earth some 2,000 years ago, who we believe comes from the planet Venus. This was him speaking through Dr. King in 1962, obviously still with a great interest in our spiritual awakening and eventually our enlightenment. So by the end of this presentation, I want to tell you more about what we can do to work together with them to raise global consciousness. But first, let me tell you about spiritual energy. Spiritual energy is the key to raising consciousness. And this is a real energy, like electricity is a real energy. And before I tell you this story that I wanted to share, let me just say that if I hadn't experienced what I am about to describe to you, I might be as skeptical as some of you may be who are listening to this now or listen to this recording in the future. I might be. But with the benefit of this experience, however, and countless other experiences like it, and seeing so many other people who've had similar experiences, practicing, what I'm going to describe here, I have learned that it's worth keeping an open mind about these things, which I encourage you to do. And it was some years ago, that I had this when I first kind of discovered the Aetherius Society. I was sitting with a friend of mine in a car at a beach outside San Francisco where I lived at the time. And she was going through a tough time, and I wanted to help, of course, as anyone would. Having just discovered the Aetherius Society recently, I didn't really know that much, but I knew enough to sort of give something a go. So when I sat back in my seat and offered my hand to her and just held it in mine, I just began to say a prayer silently and began to visualize a white light pouring down through myself into her body in the same way that you would do in any kind of contact spiritual healing technique. It might be very similar to what someone would describe, that they do in Reiki, for example. Many of them work in a similar way, visualizing white light going into the chakras of another person. And I remember the sensation in my chakras was completely electric. It was a feeling that was new and unfamiliar, and to me, when I say electric, I don't mean figuratively. I mean literally. I could feel my chakras pulsing with energy, with heat, with a pressure. But what I remember most was when I opened my eyes after a few minutes and I could see her staring at me in disbelief. And I remember the awe on her face as she just combed like through the air with her fingers like this, as if it was water, because the energy in the car at that time was so tangible. It was that physical. And she was amazed. And to be honest, I was amazed because it was so new to me as well, so unfamiliar to me, so outside of what I was taught growing up and the worldview that I had and what I understood about the nature of our world around us. But one of the most rewarding aspects of this path, I'll say, and certainly for me, is that it's not about blindly believing in things. It's about having your own experience, which means you can create a laboratory of your own mind and your own body, and you can study them. And in time, this physical experience of energy flow will eventually become so intense that you will no longer have any doubt that it is real. You have a deeper and more intimate understanding of your own chakras, about your own metaphysical makeup, and about the nature of the way that energy flows through us 24 hours a day. So for the sake of argument, let's assume that this energy is something real and that we agree on that. But what is it exactly? Dr. King described two ingredients when he talked about spiritual energy. The first one was prana. You may have heard about this in Eastern yogic writings. In Western esoteric writings, it's often called the universal life force. In other traditions, it might be called chi or ki. But this is the force of life throughout the universe. It comes from and through the sun, as far as we're concerned here on Earth. And the second ingredient is love. We talked about love in the very beginning as that energy that can fashion science into a tool so that it becometh as a wise man finding his way home. Love is that burning, selfless desire to help another aspect of God to realize its own divine nature. And ultimately, that is the highest calling of science, to help in that cause, right? So when you radiate prana with love, with this unconditional desire to help another aspect of God, you get spiritual energy. Okay, so that's the basic idea of it. Now, if that's what it is, let's talk about what it does. And let's just go back to our premise for a moment that we described in the beginning, which is that if we raise global consciousness, people will begin to think differently, more clearly, more wisely, more compassionately, even. In other words, you could say according to the inspiration and the guidance of their own higher selves, which is the higher aspect of their own consciousness. And in a world where everyone was more in touch with their higher selves, things like fear and hatred would not exist. And as I said before, there would be no war. Greed and selfishness would not exist, and therefore there would be no poverty, and so on, and so on. You get it, I think. And the key here to raising global consciousness is an increased output of this spiritual energy. So hence, when you radiate spiritual energy, you help to raise the consciousness of that person or those people that you are sending it to. And right now we have on Earth what Dr. King described as the spiritual energy crisis. In other words, too few people using spiritual energy in the right way to help others. And until we change that, none of these other problems that we experience will ever really go away, because we will never get to the root of those problems. We will only ever be treating the symptoms. That's the point. So we talked about what it is, we talked about what it does, but how do you use it? And this is the beauty of this spiritual path and what Dr. King offered in his teaching. You'll probably all know the quote attributed to Gandhi, about being the change. But what about making the change? I personally prefer that more active approach in helping to inspire change throughout the world. And I think he did too, because this is a quote that he definitely did say, whereas the other one is only attributed to him. He said that prayer is not an old woman's idle amusement, but properly understood and applied, it is the most potent instrument of action. In other words, if you know what you are doing, with your prayer, in terms of an understanding of how it is invoking and conditioning energy, it is a tool that you can use to help accomplish any task. And one of the most underestimated aspects of Dr. King's teachings is this proper understanding and application of prayer from a yogic standpoint as an instrument of action to help change the world. Now, obviously, when I say prayer, I'm not talking about asking some mythical overlord for a favor and hoping that they will grant us our request while denying some other person's request. Beliefs like this totally limit the real awe-inspiring greatness of what God really is, which is the unmanifest silent potential from which everything came in the beginning, which is the primal force of creation. So what am I talking about when I say prayer? I wanted to play for you here an extract, this time from Dr. King speaking in one of his lectures, in which he describes a little bit more about what he means when he says prayer.
Prayer does not belong to any religion, any one class or creed, but is a universal way which mankind seems to know about in order to invoke energy so that that energy may be sent from point A, the prayer, to point B, the target. When this stupendous energy of prayer is directed in the right way, then great results can be brought about for the benefit of millions of people throughout the world. Ordinary prayer, said from a good, clean heart, without being discoloured by selfish motives, is, ladies and gentlemen, a great power which each and every one of you has at your command. It's like the healing power. You can all give effective spiritual healing. You may need to learn how to start, but you can all do it once you know this. Prayer is exactly the same as this. When you think certain thoughts, the resultant reaction from those thoughts is a magnetic draw on the universal life force supply. And you cannot, it is impossible for any man, woman or child to think the right spiritual thoughts without invoking energy. You must do it. It is the law, and the law must work, and it works exactly. You will become as a dynamo charged with the universal life forces, and you can direct that power anywhere in the world. If you say with your heart and mind a balanced prayer, then the energy you invoke has to, by occult law, be of a certain frequency. and you can guarantee the frequency of that energy.
I was just checking, guys. I saw that Rupert wasn't able to hear that, but I think Henrik, you were able to. Did other people have? Oh, Jerry, you can say you can hear it. And Henry, did anyone else have any other problems? If not, I'll go ahead and
Yeah, go
Rupert,
ahead.
I'd love to share with you.
Rupert
Okay.
can hear you loud and clear. Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. So basically, the point is that he's talking about prayer as a way to send energy, right, from you to the target of your prayer. And the prayer is about invoking this energy from the one divine source and radiating this outwards. He described it as an exact metaphysical science, and that it works according to precise natural laws, that it's not something supernatural, it's not something that is imposed upon nature and the laws of the universe as we understand them. It's simply a facet of nature that science as we know it yet does not yet understand, but that one day, no doubt, in my mind, it will. The second point he made was that different qualities and different quantities of energy bring about different results. And the more energy you invoke and send it outwards, and the more you condition that energy with an unconditional love, the better the results will be. Again, it's not miraculous per se. It operates according to knowable laws. And like anything in life, the more you practice, the more effort you make, the more you do, for example, your yoga breathing, your mantra, the more you practice your concentration, the better channel you can make yourself for spiritual energy. Now, let's talk about what happens when we apply this, because that's when it gets more interesting, beyond the theory, beyond just thinking about how it works, to what happens when we use it. So what happens when you pray for peace, for example, or pray in response to a humanitarian crisis, like the crisis unfolding in Gaza at the moment? You know, that energy that you send out helps people to be more inspired by their own higher selves. So what does that mean in this case? It might inspire people in positions of authority to make those decisions in the best interests of all of those affected, to open the corridors to humanitarian aid, if that's what that means. It helps to inspire people on the ground to be more inspired toward their own spiritual awakening, so that they may recognize the insanity of war. Not to change anyone's mind to a specific point of view or to interfere in their free will in any way, but to help them to seek within, to help them to find the courage, to find the strength to listen to and follow the counsel of their own higher selves. It may help to comfort people who are in pain, who may be grieving. It might help to heal those people who have been physically injured in some way, to strengthen and inspire those people who may be working around the clock to rescue survivors from the bombed out wreckage. Now, obviously, you know, in general, just saying a few odd prayers isn't going to completely change the world by itself. Like in the same way that one drop of water is not going to fill a reservoir by itself. But every unit of energy makes a difference. And if enough people prayed for long enough and with sufficient intensity, global change would definitely come. Would definitely come. Let's talk about a real example. I mean, less than 2 weeks ago, we had this World Peace pilgrimage to Holdstone Down in Devon. Holdstone Down is actually a very significant place, spiritually speaking, but I'll talk about that more in a moment. And we had 211 people on that mountain, including some of the people who are here today, which I'm overjoyed to say. And we were praying for, among other things, humanitarian aid in Gaza in response to the horrendous conditions that people are suffering there. And later that evening, major media outlets, including the BBC, published breaking news headlines reporting that Israel would open the humanitarian corridors and airdrops of essential supplies had begun. The following day, according to news outlets, Israel also announced a daily halt in military operations in parts of Gaza. Now, most people would say that's a coincidence, right? And you'd be entirely entitled to that opinion, of course. But in my opinion, it isn't a coincidence.
Yeah,
Do I have any proof?
I remember we were on the coach back to London from there.
Oh, yeah.
You were standing up to announce very quickly, because the news popped into your phone, that there was a tactical pause. And then
right.
this leads to the Gaza corridors being open. Yeah, well done.
That's right. I mean, that's the screenshot from my phone at the moment I checked it. You know, that was 9:27. It said, you know, that news article came out some minutes earlier, and it reported that announcement had been made sometime that evening, I'm assuming Israel time, right? So some hours after we did the pilgrimage. Again, do I have any proof? No. All I can say is that that's what we did, and that later on those announcements were made, and that I fully believe that those 211 people played a role in that. That's what I can offer you. Sure, those breakthroughs may not hold, and they may be overturned, and it may get worse before it gets better. But as I see it, that is simply a function of the quality and the quantity of energy that is actually really needed to fully resolve the millennia-old problems in that area of the world. And to be honest, when you do this type of global healing work, you will rarely know what good you have done. But I can say from my own experience that the experience of giving contact spiritual healing, for example, and seeing the results in front of your eyes will give you confidence in whatever prayers you do for people or places that are far away, so that you can have faith born of experience, not blind faith, but faith born of experience in the mechanics of the universe, in the exact metaphysical science of prayer, in the profound and holy science of yoga, of mudra, of bhakti, of raja, of the function of the chakras. And in doing so, number one, realize your own spiritual potential. And number two, make use of this awesome power you have within you to change the world. It's an enormous task, and certainly it's not an easy one. But the good news is that we don't have to do it alone. In fact, the great news is that we can cooperate directly with, as we call them, the Cosmic Masters, these advanced extraterrestrial intelligences who have vastly superior power and technology to us. And together with them, we can raise global consciousness more than ever before. That is why Dr. King started the Aetherius Society in 1955. And that's why and what the path of KingYoga is about. It's about, in essence, spiritual action. It's about working together with these extraterrestrials, using spiritual energy in various ways to change the world and to open the door of enlightenment within you. So just to scratch the surface of this for you, right? Because this is just part one, as I said. But I want to just take you back to that pilgrimage, and I want to talk a little bit about what was going on behind the scenes, just to help you to appreciate in a fuller way the scope, the level of cooperation that was happening even in that moment, which some of you were a part of. The first thing is called Operation Starlight. And Operation Starlight is the name given to a mission that was undertaken by Dr. King between 1958 and 1961, in which he was directed to climb 18 mountains around the world, starting with Holdstone Down, and during which he was used as a channel through which an initial charge of energy was placed into these mountains. Why? So that each of these mountains around the world could serve as a massive storehouse of energy that can be tapped by anyone with an unselfish motive, and then sent out into the world for peace, for freedom, for relief from suffering in whatever way is necessary. And hence we went to Holdstone Down, which is probably the most accessible of the total 19 holy mountains charged in Operation Starlight, so that everyone at this pilgrimage could invoke and radiate this beautiful, holy energy in a way that they could not do from somewhere else, like Clapham Common, for example, right? It's the significance of the place and the energy that has been put into this mountain so that it can be accessed and used by humanity to help work for peace, to help raise global consciousness, to help relieve the suffering of humanity as a whole. So that's the first thing, which makes it significant. The second thing is what we call a spiritual push. And a spiritual push is something that happens 4 times a year. It's roughly a month long. And it's during this time that an extraterrestrial spacecraft known as Satellite number 3 comes into orbit of Earth. In fact, the second one finished just last night at midnight. But what happens during one of these spiritual pushes? During that time, when Satellite number 3 is in orbit of Earth, spiritual energy is radiated from this craft through anyone who does a good deed for any unselfish reason. And so when we do that, Satellite number 3 can potentize the effect of those actions 3,000 times. Now, what that means exactly is honestly not fully understood. This represents a science, I think, that is so advanced as to be beyond our comprehension, never mind our belief, most people on Earth at this time. However, What I can share with you is an extract from an eyewitness account that was made following one of Dr. King's visits to satellite number 3, which he did in a projective state of consciousness in 1956, which I think reveals a little bit more about the inner workings of this outstanding spacecraft. So I'm just going to share with you this extract now. I'm going to read it to you. It appears in the book Contacts with the Gods from Space, as well as other places, but I think it will give us a deeper appreciation of some aspect of the applied science that is at work here. So these are the words of Dr. King. I became immediately aware that I was in a huge room, housing a tremendous amount of beautifully designed apparatus. The whole place was filled with a soft, exquisite radiance, more beautiful than found in any place on Earth. The atmosphere was filled with an alluring perfume, not strong enough to be detected by the physical senses, but denotable by the reaction that it had upon my etheric body. The perfume was an energy which, if concentrated upon, would bring on the deeper states of trance, regarded on Earth as samadhi. And even though I did not really concentrate upon or tune into this perfume, its presence had a clearing effect upon my mind. In the middle of the ceiling, covering about a quarter of its huge dome surface, there was a large circular window. This was made of pure crystal, very finely ground and completely free from all flaws, such as those which might be found in terrestrial glass, meaning glass from Earth, which would be likely to blur the images seen through it. The crystal window allowed the free passage of all solar rays, as well as magnetic rays coming from other planetary bodies, which latter shone against the purple background of space with a scintillating brilliance never observed from the surface of Earth. The huge crystal window could be made into a filter by charging it with certain energies, affecting its selection of solar and magnetic rays. And during this charging process, the crystal changed color from a soft rose pink to a pulsating violet, according to the selection imposed by the operators of the satellite. Now, beneath the huge window stood 3 large crystal prisms, which broke up the solar spectrum into its primary colors. Each spectrometric color was then split into 7 further shades by another large crystal, which held my fascinated gaze. This huge crystal structure seemed to be about 25 to 30 feet high, shaped like a giant egg. What its physical weight must have been, I do not know, but it defied all the known laws of gravity because it floated in space, being neither fastened to the dome ceiling nor to the metal floor of the spacecraft. Slowly revolving around this great egg-shaped crystal were numerous other multi-shaped crystalline formations, and these moved in slow procession from the top to the bottom in an elliptical orbit. They passed between the tip of the ovoid and the great domed roof of the spacecraft to continue their travel down the side of it, passing between the bright metal floor and the bottom of this gigantic egg. The great ovoid glowed as from some internal fires, obviously radiating energies which were conditioned by something within it. The primary colors of the solar rays, broken down by the 3 huge prisms, were absorbed into the ovoid structure and radiated outwards, each one split up again into 7 further aspects of energy. These colors I could not name because I've never seen their equivalent on Earth. But I did notice with great interest that when each primary color was broken down by the ovoid, the resultant energy seemed to flow slowly, like a kind of liquid capable of being guided through the transmitting mechanism. And the latter was made of a type of metal unknown to me in the shape of a large matrix. This matrix was formed of intricate lines of metal which ran in very finely cut channels, intersecting each other at exactly 90-degree angles. In fact, I was later informed that this angle of intersection was computed so exactly that the whole matrix had to be built in space so that the curvature of a planetary mass would not affect the precise angles of intersection. Now, from this matrix, the conditioned energies were radiated to any destination on Earth. The amazing scientists on the 3rd satellite have, by a simple process of light manipulation, isolated the universal life forces referred to by the sages as prana, and these subtle pranas are the energies with which the manipulators on the 3rd satellite are flooding this dark little planet during every spiritual push. They can blend and interweave them in complicated patterns and guide the resultant energies to any spot on the surface of Earth. So that's what he shared about his own experience and observation there. And I think it gives us just a little bit of a glimpse to help spark our imagination as to how it might really work. And you may even seen some parallels into some of the principles by which you have been exploring in your own work. And I think it's interesting, for me at least, to see almost into the future by seeing the way that some of this technology has been built and applied by a civilization millions of years more advanced than our own. And these cosmic masters, they have urged us countless times to work as hard as we possibly can during a spiritual push to cooperate with satellite number 3, because these periods are so vital to helping to end that spiritual crisis that we face. And as I have described, cooperating with satellite number 3 is as simple as it gets. I mean, all that matters literally is that you do a good deed for an unselfish reason. And when you do, you can multiply the impact of that unselfish effort 3,000 times. Now, third thing I'd like to share with you is the radionic devices. And just to keep it straightforward, what I'll say is that there was also energy from multiple extraterrestrial sources being sent through 2 different radionic devices known as SpiritualEnergy radiators, which were designed by Dr. King, and they were built by Aetherius Society technicians. And what these do is they make it possible for enormous quantities of high quality energy to be sent out into the world, energy which we would not have access to otherwise. In this case, for the purpose of potentizing the focus of this pilgrimage, which was world peace, including this humanitarian aid in Gaza. And I am not aware of any other organization on the planet with similar technology or cooperation with advanced extraterrestrials. So if we go back to our pilgrimage and think about what was really going on, what did you have? You had over 200 spiritually minded people there on a holy mountain, invoking the energy that has been put into there by extraterrestrial sources. It was happening during a spiritual push in cooperation with satellite number 3, potentizing the impact of that action 3,000 times, whatever that really means. While additional energies from other extraterrestrial sources were also being sent out through 2 spiritual energy radiators, also to potentize those efforts. And that is at least part of the reason why I believe that pilgrimage was so powerful. And I think represents a unique cooperation with advanced extraterrestrials who have a deep interest in helping humanity on Earth. And literally, I am only just scratching the surface of the work of the Aetherius Society and the various ways in which we cooperate with these advanced extraterrestrial intelligences. And I'm excited to say that Richard, who will be speaking to this forum in December, can expand on any of this for you to give you a deeper understanding of this if you're interested, particularly in the way that various modus operandi were worked out, either by Dr. King or by these advanced extraterrestrials, or together with them, in order to help raise the consciousness of humanity on Earth, and even to help improve our karma as a race. So what's the message then at the end of the day here? For me, what I've tried to describe is that the root of our problems on Earth is a spiritual energy crisis, but that we can end this crisis. And if more people were to use spiritual energy in the right way to help others, we'll be helping to raise the consciousness of humanity as a whole. And if we do that, people will think and act in a more inspired way as an expression of that pure divinity within, and will cooperate together to create a world of lasting peace, of enlightenment, to cooperate together to create that true vision of peace which you advocate, right? We are not alone in doing it on this earth. We can all cooperate with the Cosmic Masters in their plan to help humanity. And that is what KingYoga is about. It's about using this spiritual energy, as I said before, to change the world and to open the door of enlightenment within you. It is about applying these spiritual sciences for the benefit of humanity as a whole. I'm going to give the floor to the Master Aetherius, I think, to have the last word here. And then if there's time, I'd be very happy to take any questions that you may have.
Yeah.
So these are the words of the Master Aetherius, the first advanced extraterrestrial being to speak through Dr. George King to the people of Earth.
The position upon your Earth is not an impossible one. Even in the midst of darkness, there is still great light. Thousands of your number are working throughout the world to bring great light. They are working against tremendous odds, and, you know, they are succeeding. Don't sit back, though, please, and allow these ones to go on alone. It is your help they need, not your sympathy. If you are worthy of the name a human, you will give them this help in every conceivable way. And if enough of you do it, you will do great, great things. Draw down the great powers unto yourself. Vibrate with this tremendous power and energy, and go forward, giving service instead of sympathy, living your belief instead of just talking about it, cooperating instead of competing. And then you will not only help yourselves, but help hundreds, aye, maybe even thousands of your terrestrial brothers. Mark ye well, O men of terror, what has been said. Act upon it, if you be great enough, wise enough to do so.
Inspiring words of the Master Aetherius. So thank you very much for your time and giving me the opportunity to speak to you all. And if there are any questions that you have about what I've shared, I'd be very happy to take any of them.
Thank you very much, Darren. Wow, you're a true minister of Master Aetherius' words and Dr. George King's mission. Truly appreciate your presentation. You brought it all out so succinctly and so clearly what the mission's about. I actually wanted to say, folks, because I think you had evoked some curiosity here as to when would the spiritual pushes be when satellite number 3 orbits around the planet. It will be on April the 18th to May the 23rd. Sorry, I'm reading from this book because I bought this book when I went to
Thanks, Crystal.
to Darren's presentation, Contacts with the Gods from Space. You can buy it too from Amazon.com, Darren?
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's called Contacts with the Gods from Space. Okay. Authored by George King with Richard Lawrence. Okay, so Richard Lawrence will be speaking on the 3rd of December. Okay, Spiritual Pushes, April the 18th to May the 23rd, July the 5th to August the 5th, September the 3rd to October the 9th, November the 4th to December the 10th. And you can play this recording back to get the exact dates. I had to mention this because it's very important. Most of our people here, our listeners, our viewers are having their own divine missions. So they need this spiritual energy beamed down to them at this specific dates, especially when it's mentioned that people who are selflessly here to do good for humanity, they will receive the spiritual pushes to the to the factor of like 3,000 times more spiritual energy, isn't it, Darren? Is it 3,000
Yeah, as I
times?
said, it's hard to know exactly what that means. I mean, but I think the bottom line is that it can help us to evolve 3,000 times more,
Yeah.
3,000 times faster than we would otherwise. It helps us to progress through our karmic experience. That energy may not come back to you directly. It may come back to just the consciousness of humanity as a whole and empower us to progress further.
Yeah, it's really incredible. It's the first time I have participated in this pilgrimage at Holdstone Down together with Natalie Hoodred and her husband, Rupert Douglas Bate, who will be speaking in the next session. So we have all gone there with Matthew Elliott as well from our R&D team. It was quite an experience, isn't it? All right, so we have questions now before I ask, or maybe I should ask Natalie and Rupert to say a word or two about your feeling and your experience when you were up there doing the prayers in the pilgrimage. Natalie?
Hi there. Thank you for your presentation, Darren, and for the book that you distributed. Yes, this mountain, I mean, it's quite incredible. And I could hear whispers of other people saying that they wanted to visit all 18 mountains, you know.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I'd love to do that. Yes, it was beautiful, and you know, the wildflowers up there and the views, and it was extraordinary, saying those mantras, just repeating those mantras over and over. It gets you into a vibration, doesn't it? Into a sort of frequency.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's something that you can even experiment with at home. You do it for 5 minutes, you do it for 10 minutes, you do it for 30 minutes, and you can feel your whole body begin to vibrate in a certain way. I mean, the mantras, they were sort of discovered by the Brahmins of old, as it's described, as certain vibrations which can help to activate certain chakras in certain ways. And the reason, so they are used to do that. The purpose of the mantra is to activate our chakras in a certain way, which allows, the in and outward flow of these subtle energies that we can radiate, potently out into the world. So yeah, the experience of doing it is a great way to prove to yourself that the nature of your own metaphysical makeup, and the fact that you're not just the physical body, but you are this, you are these chakras and the subtle energy nervous system, which can invoke, condition, and send out this energy into the world.
Darren, if I may say, the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum has been used by the Buddhists for the Goddess of Mercy prayers.
Has it?
And
okay, yeah.
And it was like a sing-song kind of incantation of the mantra. Like you were saying it straight, like Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. The Chinese Buddhists are singing it like Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. That's the tune we go by. So it's fascinating how the different cultures merge together there. Yeah, and somebody had commented in the Telegram group, FESIG Telegram group, that, oh, it's a religious cult, it's new. It's not, I must say, because when I first stepped into the Aetherius temple and I first met Darren was giving his presentation that time, I felt very at home because I grew up. When I first started to learn to read and write, I was always reaching out for spiritual books, and then I touched, somebody was recommending the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and that was fantastic. That formed the basis of my reaching out to hypnotism school to practice hypnotism, because Patanjali Yoga Sutras had taught me how to meditate and do the power of the mind thing, mind over body. I thought it's really helpful and very fantastic. And then you were Dr. George King's basing his teachings also on the masters like Babaji, who's like still alive for 2,500 years now, living in the foothills of the Himalayas. Apparently, he's leading the humanity's evolutionary spiritual process, right? From the White Brotherhood, he's leading them.
Yeah, I would just add to that and say that someone like the Lord Babaji is, as we refer to him, we believe he's actually from the planet Saturn. As you say, he has come here, volunteered to help in the evolution and enlightenment of humanity. But even for the Mother Earth and her own journey through experience, and more even than 2,500 years, we believe that he's been here for 3,000 million years, as in 3 billion. We're talking about an intelligence who is, just beyond our imagination, really, in terms of their spiritual evolution. And that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about their civilizations, even in our own solar system, just to provoke our curiosity and imagination about how advanced, how incredible they really are. And yes, the Lord Babaji is the head of the spiritual hierarchy of Earth, you could say. Which includes the ascended masters, known by some as the Great White Brotherhood, but certainly not all male and certainly not all white. I mean, probably white in the minority. So there's there's not that association there. It's the color of their magic, the quality of their magic that refers to.
White means white light, I guess.
Yeah, white magic. As it was, positive magic. You might call it that. As it's,
And I understand from the Babaji that I knew since young, it's half male, half female. The yin yang merged as one.
I think it's an interesting point, because I think that that they're a perfect blend, a perfect harmony of the masculine and feminine polarity. And the fact that he may be manifest at this moment as a man is it may have some bearing on his mission here on Earth, but it's just how he's manifest here for that purpose. It's not what he is as a being. In fact, a Saturnian is actually described as a sixfold being, and in the Nine Freedoms, which is one of our sort of core spiritual texts, it goes into much more deeper detail about what life is actually like on these other planets, including Saturn.
And I understand that Dr. George King had been prepared by the teachings of Babaji, of course, Patanjali Yogi, and the Paramahansa Yogananda books also I've read, and I had that preparation from young as well. That's why I felt very at home when I went to your temple. Yeah,
I mean, it's a good point. I'm sure a lot of those would have influenced him at that time. Studying yoga for those years following the Second World War, and you can definitely see the influence of the ancient mystical yoga tradition in a lot of his early lectures, and even the later work that he did is based upon these ancient teachings that have been with us for thousands of years. And what the Aetherius Society represents is this harmonious blending together of this wisdom rooted in these ancient spiritual cultures on Earth, merging together with this new age cosmic wisdom, which are revealing even more profound truths that we have not had before, and in ways and in language that is possibly easier to understand and to therefore apply ourselves to.
Yeah, it's like multi-dimensional spirituality here, and we've got Lord Jesus and Lord Buddha in the shrine with their shrines in your temple as well. So when you were invoking prayers, you call upon these masters, don't you? So it's international, multidimensional. It's not a cult. It's not a religion. I want to clarify that.
Well, it's very kind of you to offer people a deeper perspective for them to consider it more fully. And I, just speaking to what you said there about the Master Jesus and the Lord Buddha, these are two beings who we see as who came from the planet Venus with a mission to help in the enlightenment of people on Earth, and who came at different times to different places, but as part of one cosmic plan, one unified plan in which these extraterrestrials are working together through these agents that they have on Earth to help humanity as a whole to evolve. So it's this is not a random thing. yes, these teachers may have come to give different aspects of the one universal truth, and they gave, these different messages to different people in different places at different times. But very much like the parable of the elephant, which is described by Sri Ramakrishna, this is very much us discovering different parts of this elephant that represents the totality of God, and beginning as a human race to understand the nature of the divine and of our reality. But Jerry, you had a question. You got your hand up.
Yeah, Jerry has a
while.
question.
Yeah.
And Henrik too. Jerry first. Jerry, unmute yourself, bro.
First, Darren, thanks for a really interesting presentation. And my question is about what's happening now in societies around the world. All of us that can comprehend some things of what you are talking about, we have all seen the big lie in any form from society. But we have over 80% of the people, at least in the Western world, that are cognitive dissonance, that are formatted by the politicians, mainstream media, schooling system, and so on. And a key thing you mentioned is that we all must pray more to keep up the frequency. What do you think about what's happening now in, for example, USA with the Obamagate thing and Trump and everything? Is that something that will help other people wake up?
Well, I think, without knowing about the specific cases in detail and really knowing what's true or not, I think I'll just speak to the principle of sharing truth, right? I mean, sharing truth in and of itself helps to free people from the limitation of the lies that they may have been living under and that conditioning, and helps to raise their consciousness. I mean, speaking spiritual truth, if you imagine the mind belt of Earth, for want of a better word, the sea of mind that we all live in and that we interact with, in every moment, the more that we talk about and share and teach spiritual truth to others, the more that takes hold in the mind belt of Earth, and the more accessible it is to people, the more that they can, the more that they can access that. So in anyone who's sharing spiritual truth is making it easier for other people to discover spiritual truth and begin to make that live within them. And obviously, what we need to help dismantle so many of these lies, which have been sort of perpetrated throughout the world and have been used by governments, etc., to impose their conditioning and their control on the human race, is number one, the sharing of spiritual truth. But number two, these other ways that we have talked about, which can help inspire people to seek within and to rise above, to be inspired to rise above the lies that they've been told, to look further than what's been presented to them. I mean, that's why I talk about this is about empowering and inspiring people, by giving them the energy that they can use to be more inspired and to live under the influence and the guidance of their own higher self. So, if I look at my own life, I would say that until the age of 22, I was very much caught up in all of that. I believed everything, about the society that we live in and the conditioning that we're a part of. And it wasn't until I discovered spirituality and begun to do some of these practices and begin to change and activate my own chakras and raise my own level of consciousness that I began to see through it and realize that what we've been told is just simply not true. And obviously, the more people that begin to do that, the momentum that we build with the number of people that are sort of operating on a daily basis in a higher state of consciousness, the more it can empower other people to raise up as well.
All right. Thank you, Darren. Our second speaker has been here for a long time. Rupert has a question for you, because
Rupert, go for it.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I my spiritual background is Christianity, and but also I'm. When I was 14 and 15, I used to write letters for Amnesty International
Oh
because
yeah.
I believe in freedom of conscience and the freedom of non-violent belief. You know, if it's something which is, I think, part of God's nature. He wants us to have free will to be able to believe according to our conscience. So that's really where I think I'm coming from. But I'm curious, Darren, when you talk about Venus, because do you mean literally Venus or do you mean a metaphorical Venus? What do you, when you talk about like quote unquote Master Jesus and was it Master Buddha and several others coming from Venus, do you mean literally Venus or do you mean a metaphorical Venus?
Literal.
Literally.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for bringing it up. And I don't know when you whether you were here from the beginning or not, but one point I should definitely clarify is that we do mean literally Venus, but we mean a higher level of existence on the planet Venus. And what I use to help kind of make that more accessible is that even on Earth, there are other realms of existence here. And we know that because mediums have been in contact with people who have died and are awaiting reincarnation. And where are they? We know that because psychics can see these other realms, which are perfectly dovetailed with our own. We know that because people have projected their consciousness from their physical body to these other realms. In fact, we all do at night when we sleep. And I'm sure there are people here or who may be listening to this in future who have had out-of-body experiences or have had extremely vivid dreams in which they have experienced, being on another realm. So on these other planets, because they are so advanced, because there are millions or even billions of years more evolved than we are, they exist on these higher levels of consciousness, you may say, around their planet, such that if you went to Venus or if NASA went to Venus, as they have, as I was talking about earlier, you would not see any civilization on the surface of the planet. You would have to be looking at a higher level of vibration on the planet for any, indication at all that there was life there.
Well, I do believe that there are other realms beyond this physical one. But just back to Venus, when I just asked Gemini, Google Gemini, tell me about Venus.
Yeah.
It says Venus has the hottest surface of any planet in our solar system with an average temperature of 464 Celsius, hot enough to melt lead. This extreme heat is caused by a runaway greenhouse effect from incredibly dense atmosphere, which is about 96% carbon dioxide. The atmospheric pressure on the surface is a crushing 95 times that of Earth's, equivalent to pressure found a kilometer deep in our oceans. That's on Earth. The planet is perpetually shrouded in thick yellowish clouds of sulfuric acid, making its surface impossible to see with a regular telescope. So, I mean, that's the physics. That's why I asked, do you believe literally or is it metaphorically? And so
Well, you've made a great clarification, which is we do not believe that there is life on the physical surface of the planet Venus you've just described. Although I do believe that if they wanted to be there, they're so advanced and could manifest any form that wouldn't be a problem for them. We're not talking about life as we know it. We're not talking about other carbon-based cellular organisms of what we can find on our own planet and are trying to imagine that they exist within the atmosphere that you just described. I mean, that would be just delusional and absurd. What we are talking about is, number one, another level of existence on the planet, which may enjoy completely different conditions than what you just described. In the same way that, in the physical place where you are sitting right now, in that room where you are, there could be a mountain or an ocean on another realm, and yet you have no inkling of it whatsoever because it's existing at a different level of vibration than you are in this moment. And the conditions at that place may be completely different than what you're experiencing right now. So I think that's an extremely important point. I'm really glad you raised it. And I think the second half of that answer is that these beings, if we can imagine how advanced they are, existing in their natural state, perhaps even as ovoids of light, I mean, what would any of those conditions that you described really mean to consciousness like that? We
It's on another dimensional level.
Yeah.
It's a different, like, parallel reality existence, Rupert. So this is what Darren is explaining so well. It's another dimensional existence.
Right. No,
Yeah,
I,
people used
The physicality doesn't count because they are vibrating on a higher vibrational frequency. Their molecular structure would be of a different nature.
yes.
Yeah, I would say that if you were there, it would be as physical as, you know, the world around you is now. But you were going to say something, Rupert. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I mean, I understand. I understand that you're saying that it's not a literal. It's in another. You're saying, I think what I'm hearing is you're saying that these entities exist, but in another dimension, and not in the physical dimension that we live in here. I mean, my body is held together by charges inside atoms and between atoms, and you know, all sorts of rays from outer space are coming through the planet, including our bodies, like water going through, like light going through water. You know, so I get that. So I think what I'm hearing is you're saying that this is another spiritual dimension or another sort of dimension of reality on Venus, but not the physical Venus that the NASA tells us
I
is
would
there
say,
described.
yeah, not the physical plane of Venus. Like, you know, if you were just to travel now in a spacecraft, or you were to send some sort of drone or other exploratory craft to Venus at this moment, and it could survive the horrendous or very difficult environmental conditions you just described, and it sat there on the surface looking around, you would not see the civilization that I'm describing, because it does not exist on that level. It exists on a higher level of vibration. That's the best way I can describe it. Some people may use the word dimension. I mean, these are all words in a way because, you know, we don't fully understand them, not spiritually or scientifically. But we do know from our experience on Earth that these other realms certainly do exist. And it helps us to understand what it must be like also on the other planets.
That, you know, we could talk for days.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also there is the theory of every planet in the solar system, or anywhere, even in the universe, in the other galaxies as well. Well, planets, they're globes, right? So inside is hollow. So there has been a hypothesis that was brought about by so many whistleblowers of the SSB or whoever, that it's hollow inside the planet. So the conditions could be so fiercely uninhabitable outside on the surface, but inside it is perfect condition for thriving life, you know, like our planet as well. I'm sure you've heard of the hollow earth phenomenon. When Admiral Byrd flew his craft over the opening of the Antarctic Circle, he actually entered into a flourishing tropical-like subtropical climate inside the hollowness of the planet.
So here, this is curious because I personally I don't believe that the planet is hollow in the middle.
Mhm.
What I do think is true is that out there is a lot of science going on at the fringes of conventional science, if you like, and out of that unconventional science sometimes comes a new idea which just changes everything. And I mean, the world and at one stage, all reasoned and reasonable people felt that the world was flat until somebody along said, no, it's round. And of course, they didn't believe him. But then after a bit, they did believe him because the science showed that it was round. And you know, it took some organizations 400 years to arrive at the point of actually believing this was what was going on.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good point.
so yeah, but the problem we have, if you like, is trying to work out, and I think it's wrong of conventional science, therefore, to dismiss all fringe science out of hand, and that it's a form of snobbery. It's a form of
Yeah, it's a good point.
actually, because occasionally, as I say, you get this unconventional scientist creating the most extraordinary idea, and then no one believes them, and then eventually they're shown to be correct, but by which time they've died, and then they're rehabilitated. So only time will tell. Ultimately, I suspect. So that's really what I'm feeling here. And there are
that
some
is
ideas, and the
Rupert. We can discuss that in
yeah,
another
I know.
talk where we can
Let's do that.
invite other speakers who specialize in this. So then
Okay.
we can have a sort of a Q&A session of a debate there in that
Yeah.
particular theme. Whereas today's theme, where Darren is addressing, is the Aetherius Society doing good for humanity, taking advantage of the spiritual pushes and solving these spiritual energy crisis on the planet. So we are staying on theme now. As chair, it is my responsibility to keep everyone on track. So we then can move on to the second session where you will be speaking, Rupert, and we're all ears and we can't wait to hear what you're going to tell us about your invention. That is the true science that you're bringing to the fore to help humanity with.
Yeah.
So, folks, there being no other question, now this first session, I want to give you a chance. Anybody has any last question before I close this first session? And be very brief because we don't have time now. No? Okay, right. So there being no other questions and no other business, this first session of Physics 139th meeting is now adjourned to the second session, where Rupert will be speaking about bringing water to the arid lands with his app that he invented. Right. Thank you so much, Darren, for your wonderful presentation that makes so much sense and it's so well explained. Thank you.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you for all of your very kind attention and time.
Stop recording now. Thank you so much, Darren.